Hey, what's up? In today's video, I'm gonna give you the TLDR of the most recent balance changes. They just rolled out a few hours ago to the Korean PTR server. And please remember, just because it's a PTR server that we're reading about, it's not 100% guaranteed that everything I'm gonna mention will actually make it to the live servers and then over to the West. Most things do, because the devs don't generally change their minds, but there might be slight adjustments. Because of that, I'm gonna link you this article in the description below so you can check out everything in detail depending on what class you play, because I'm just gonna breeze through them so we wouldn't make the video too long, just give you the most important things. And I'm also gonna post in the description below the actual article when it comes out for the balance changes that make it to the live server, so that you can be in the loop, right? First, let's start off with the Berserker. The Berserker's technique got a buff, which makes it better than it is right now. Maybe even a nice change to the 90% of Berserkers who actually play Mayhem right now to swap on over to the Berserker's technique. And speaking about Mayhem, it also got a slight buff, a damage reduction increase from 65 to 70, which is nice. It's not that gigantic, but it's still nice. This I think totals up to maybe a 14% less damage, if my math is right. Might not be, but it might also mean that Berserkers who play Mayhem and also the damage reduction card set might actually be able to swap to the Light of Salvation. Overall, the changes to the skills seem to be aimed at a faster pace for the Berserker, lower animation and charge locks, if that makes sense. Moving on to the Gunlancer, the red Gunlancer got a pretty nice buff, and something that's very important to note is that the party synergy of the Gunlancer with the front and back attack has actually been changed now, when before it was 3% damage boost to the party and also 9% head and back attack. Now after the changes, the base damage boost is 1% higher. It went from 3 to 4%, but the back and front attack damage modifiers are only at 5%, going down from the previous 9. So this is quite a substantial, I wouldn't say necessarily a nerf to the Gunlancer, even though that's obviously also the case because they're also front attackers, but also to the party synergy in general, right? Especially for the classes who use the Earth Entropy. So I'm pretty sad right now playing a Destroyer myself and really being happy with what the Gunlancer was offering. Now they're gonna still offer a really nice buff, but it's just at a lower value. And with this, obviously a flat damage increase from 3 to 4% is a tiny boost to everyone else that's not a front and back having a Gunlancer in the group, right? So it's an interesting change, right? But generally speaking, it's a nerf not only to the Gunlancer but also to Earth's Entropy classes. Destroyer, since we were just talking about Destroyer, it was basically left unchanged. Some changes for a couple of the skills, Perfect Swing and Endure Pain, for during the PvP content, right? Other than that, it stays the same. Paladin gets a buff to their blue skills, and in general their damage is increased by 6% for PvE content, which is nice for your daily routine. Maybe you're a roster full of pallies, right? Now it's gonna just be that much faster. DPS pally, I don't think it's a thing still, but hey, 3 more of these balance patches and you never know when DPS pally is gonna be in the meta, right? Next we have the Glavier. The Glavier did get a buff to the control engraving, even though I feel that Glavier players are still gonna be a little bit upset, because every balance patch Glavier gets a little bit more damage overall. But I think that the issues there with the Glavier are not necessarily in, you know, increase my damage by that much percent, but maybe a slight rework of how things with the class engravings work. But still, it's a small W, okay, for the Glaviers. Deadeyes, shout out to my friends Deadeyes, right? I love Deadeyes. I never make fun of Deadeyes, right? Deadeyes got a buff for the Pistolier engraving, out of all things, so they must be happy. I still don't think that the Deadeye is going to be top DPS right now on Pistolier. However, for a build that's very easy to play, or relatively easy to play in comparison with many other classes, it's still it's it's a medium W. It's a bigger W than for Glaviers, right? Around 9% DPS increase for the Pistolier Deadeye. Artillerists have been buffed for the firepower engraving, which to me is a little bit strange. I think firepower does quite decent damage based on how sort of relatively easy it is to manage as a rotation, as a build in general. However, the engraving has been changed slightly. Here is where it was changed. For example, the firepower gauge is maintained for 2 more seconds at level 3, but also the damage increase, yeah, normal skill damage by 20% before and 25% now at firepower level 3. Sharpshooter, this was something that made a lot of people very happy, because the Sharpshooter with the pet build has been actually buffed by quite a nice amount, and on top of that they have some quality of life changes. So loyal companion buffed, and there is a chance that they might have to swap from swiftness to spec. A chance. I think the people who I talked to that play Sharpshooter on the Korean servers, they said that it's still unclear if the loyal companion now does better with specialization or still can stay with swiftness and still perform the same, only take advantage of the buffs that they received. There's not going to be any more double class engraving builds, that's for sure. Moving on to the Machinist, this one received a buff for the Argentinian technology engraving, which is pretty nice. Then we have the Gunslinger, which time to hunt was buffed. It also applies to the awakening skills right now, so there is a potential there for a better burst from a Gunslinger, and on top of that the snipe skills have been buffed as well. So overall positive changes for the Gunslinger. Moving on to the Summoner has been sort of slightly nerfed. The actual translation for the patch notes reads, in PvE the damage of all skills except for basic attacks has been reduced by 4%. So this affects both the communication overflow and the Master Summoner engraving. However, there is a change to the Master Summoner engraving, which is a buff on paper, but taking into consideration this nerf, it's actually still a slight nerf to the Master Summoner as well. The change is here in terms of the damage. Normal skills and ancient skills do 2, 6, 12%, so 12% at level 3, and before it was 10% more damage for normal and ancient skills at level 3. So a 2% increase and a 4% reduction, which makes it a 2% overall reduction for the Master Summoner build and a 4% overall reduction for the Communication Overflow build. I always thought that Summoner is going to get a nerf, but I always thought that it's going to be a small nerf, and this doesn't seem like a gigantic nerf. It's just a nerf to the Summoner with a little bit bigger nerf to the Communication Overflow engraving. Don't worry about it too much. If you're currently playing Communication Overflow Summoner, you are going to continue playing Communication Overflow Summoner, and you're still going to be doing okay. The Arcanist also was sort of left unchanged, with the exception of the fact that they made it a little bit easier to play, in the sense that you don't need to use animation cancelling for this anymore. It's just as fast as not to need it to be cancelled by another skill. So that's more of a quality of life change for the Arcanist. The Bard, same as the Pally, but even better, got damage boost. Increased damage of all skills except basic attacks by 10.2% in PvE content. And not only that, the Bard also got a visual rework, which is super cool. Not only it looks more up to date, but also it does more damage for your daily content. Again, same as with the Pala, if you're having a full roster of supports, some Bards, some Pallies, you're gonna be a bit happier now. Some other interesting changes for the Bard though, the identity gauge, both of them have now a cooldown of 1 second. So in the case where you use a bubble to heal the party up, but then something happens and you take another batch of damage, you can right away use the second bubble to heal that one up as well. So this is an interesting change. And also the change to Symphonia, which is the shield awakening, the range of it, you no longer have to chase people around the map or the people who are low and cast it around them. It has a 24-meter range, which is double the previous one. This is gonna allow you to catch everyone with your awakening. Next we have the Sorceress. The instant cast reflux got a buff in today's patch. The Deathblade the same as the Gunlancer, got a nerf in their party synergy. It's the exact same nerf, basically. The damage of party members increased from 3% to 4%, so the base value, but then the front and back damage is increased by 5% as opposed to 9% like they did before, which is also a nerf to the Deathblade herself. The Shadowhunter got a small buff. Why am I laughing? I mean, I'm laughing about the Shadowhunter perfect suppression buffs, but there was not even a word about the War Dancer, so we're gonna get to that and laugh when we get to War Dancer. We won't, because there's no War Dancer in the patch notes, but just saying. So Shadowhunter got a small buff for the perfect suppression build, which increased their damage overall, but at the same time, with the nerf for the Gunlancer Deathblade back and front, you're sort of at the same place as a Shadowhunter. Maybe for like your daily activities, like your daily pugs, where you don't have like the perfect class synergy for a perfect suppression. Who played perfect suppression anyway? Right, everyone was on a demonic impulse. But I'm just saying, right, that this is a nice change to a step in the right direction. Can I just call it like that? Then we have the Reaper. Reaper got a buff to the Lunar build, but also sort of a smaller buff involuntarily to the Hunger as well, because of the red skills were buffed, and also the Persona mode was also improved to be better. That's about everything. There's no other class. There's no mention about a Scrapper. There's no mention about a War Dancer, for example, but we're waiting for maybe changes for these classes as well. I wish you guys a lovely evening, morning, afternoon, whenever you're watching this video. I thank you so much for watching, and I'm gonna see you really soon. Take care.